SBJ I Factor is presented by Allied Sports, a full-service agency built to lead modern marketers in the shift from sponsor to storyteller. Find out how at alliedsports.com.
AJ Maestas was born in Fairbanks, Alaska, had a stint on Wall Street, and founded his own firm, Navigate, which provides analysis, insights, and solutions to the sports business, among other things. He was also a member of Sports Business Journal's 40 Under 40 class in 2015. AJ Maestas, welcome to the SBJ I Factor presented by Allied Sports.
Thank you, Abe, for having me here.
It's good to see you as always. I always start these I Factors from the beginning, so we have to start. I would guess you're the only SBJ 40 Under 40 honoree who was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. So talk about your youth and how that influenced your journey.
I'm sure that's true. I would hope that I would know about it if there was someone else out there from Alaska, but there's some interesting folks now. You know, one of the founders of Arctos grew up outside of Anchorage, Alaska. So he might just be a little too old as far as 40 Under 40 at this point. But there'll be another someday, I hope. Well, growing up in Alaska was different. You can probably imagine, you know, there's all these ways that I could probably paint the picture of the challenges of Alaska, because there are many. It's just a different kind of place. But there were a lot of amazing things that happened there for me. You know, there's a lot of freedom. I didn't have a curfew. I kind of just, you know, went where I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. And the people there do have this sort of spirit of adventure and risk taking. And there's something to be said for growing up, you know, among nature. My father was a big outdoorsman, so hunting and fishing and camping and hiking and those kind of things. So yeah, it was definitely different. I don't think you need 18 years to take those lessons with you, but I'm actually glad, you know, as far as, you know, a life journey goes, it is different and it was educational.
And what was the thought of a young AJ in terms of your career aspirations? What did you think you would focus on?
Oh, well, I definitely thought I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. So that's how misguided I was. You know, the snow in Fairbanks can linger into like June. And then I remember one year it snowed 5 or 6 inches on the first Wednesday of schools. I think it was like September 4th, 5th or something, and stuck. You know, usually that first snowfall melts. So you can probably guess this wasn't a conducive environment to baseball. But I don't know. I had some sort of weird burning drive to get out. I wasn't unhappy or anything. I loved my childhood, but I didn't really envision a career. You know, my parents didn't go to college. I wasn't sort of in that environment where you're having these sort of examples on the business side. That wasn't sort of a role model path. I just knew I wanted to scoot out of there. I took off right after my high school graduation party and didn't go back for about a decade. So there was something that was drawing me away.
Well, your undergrad, University of Washington, I believe in finance. So talk a little bit about that and how that kind of influenced the path.
Well, it was such a gift. You know, I didn't belong at that university. I shouldn't have gotten into that university. And so there was a bit of catching up to do, right? I had tutors and, you know, going into those sort of student-led help labs, you know, that get you through some of the deficiencies I had and catching up. They were all my own fault, right? We could all have put better work in high school, but it was really a gift. I mean, you know, you talk about broadening your horizons or the world opening up to you. There was just kids from different backgrounds doing things, clubs and organizations that, you know, were things I just wasn't aware of. Eventually I caught up academically and you know, I met my wife there. I mean, you know, I think about a lot of people have a lot of love for their alma mater, but I think about, you know, what is that bond or what is that sense of community or connection? For me, it's this sort of fork in the road where my life could have gone a very, very different way if not for University of Washington.
Was sports business at all in the mindset then?
I kind of had it in the back of my mind. I was really passionate about sports. I had this really misguided thought that I would go earn money and then go be in sports, you know, because that would be fun. But that's not a place you could, you know, earn a living. So having gotten better grades, excellent grades, you know, the last couple of years, it opened up doors for me to get, you know, some of these fancy, well-paying jobs. And I thought, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. You know, you come out of business school, you're supposed to make money. So it took a while for me to get there, but I did have this epiphany moment where a friend of mine called me out. She basically said, you always talk about, working your passion and all that kind of stuff. But she told me, I'm living in New York at the time, right out of college. You always talk about working in sports someday, but you couldn't be anything further from it. And so that was my epiphany, my sort of wake up call that I was being a hypocrite. What do they say? If you spot it, you got it. I'm giving her advice, believing that, she wasn't on her ultimate path, and she served it right back to me. And it was true. I mean, it was honestly true. It was a silly thing to say. By that time I'm probably 23 or 24 years old and talking about what I really will do when I want to, as opposed to what I was doing because I felt like I had to or should. So it was in the back of my mind, but no, I was one of those, and no one would really call your 20s a career transition person, but it felt that way to me. It felt that way because I was stepping off one treadmill to get on another.
Did that inform your decision to go to ASU and get your MBA?
Yeah, without question. That was the ASU decision was really scary. In my mind, you had to go to a top 10 business school, to be on like the accelerated path. And there aren't sports programs at top 10 business schools. It was really disheartening. I was in love with Northwestern, and my wife was going to law school there. And I met with the sports business, sort of department there, the kids that was like, self-led student organization, of which none were going to go work in sports because the offers were so superior to go into, consulting and banking and what have you. And it just, it was scary because it was a path that in my mind, I was intentionally taking a step backwards with hopes that I might take two forward in the future. I knew that I would come out from that program making less than I did before I went back to business school. I mean, those are crazy decisions, especially Gen X, the generation I'm in. I think you see these younger kids now, they very much, put their health and vision and stuff like that beyond short-term financial gain. But that was a weird thing with my peers. So yeah, it felt scary. Obviously it feels good now and it looks good now, but it was scary.
And that program was, I mean, you had a strong group. I mean, a lot of smart, talented people came out of ASU's MBA Sports Management, or I don't know exactly what the name of the program was, but so on that, at that time, AJ, was the focus, hey, I think I'd go work for a league, a team, a brand, or did you always have that entrepreneur in yourself to open your own shop?
I hope I'm not rewriting history by saying that was in the back of my mind, but I think it really was in the back of my mind. And you're right. ASU had so many super talented kids and they went on to do such amazing things, but there were only 12 students per year in that program. Wow. And with the benefit of hindsight, and with that program now defunct and non-existent, I look at Jim Kaler, who was my pathway to going to Ohio University, who went on to be the executive director at Ohio University. I always think to myself, wow, if I'd gone to Ohio University and been connected to that amazing alumni network.
When you were there and you were leaving MBA at ASU, I remember seeing you, because this is early to mid, 2003, 2004, like I would see you at different events, conferences. You were always a master at getting to know people and talking to people and really networking. And at that time, I'd have to be reminded, had you founded Navigate at that time?
I had not, and I'm really impressed by your memory, Abe, but that's right. We met in the winter of 2003 at the National Sports Forum in Chicago, I believe. And that conference was a real gateway for me, feeling of, connectedness and belonging, right? Being able to have friends, as you know, it's such a family atmosphere at that annual get together. Thank you, Ron Siever, absolute bridge to my career and what became Navigate. But no, I had not founded Navigate yet. And I did have entrepreneurship in the back of my mind. I would talk about it with, my classmates that were close friends at ASU, but it wasn't clear exactly what it would be. And I didn't think it would be so soon after finishing my MBA. I was only out for a year or two when I started Navigate. So it was the summer of 2006 that I founded Navigate. And it was premature based on, a lot of mentors' opinions and traditional, standards. I felt like my network wasn't there yet. And I had plenty of skill to refine, but there was also this changing thing happening in the sports business world. People were mostly just justifying the investments they wanted to make, and measurement could be pretty much summed up as minutes and seconds of television exposure, which I know that is still popular, but I view that as a horrifically inferior way to, assess, is that really working for a brand, let's say a sponsor as an example. And so it just felt like the moment in time was there. And founded Navigate too soon, with too little knowledge, with good fortune as far as timing. It made up for my mistakes.
And so AJ, was measurement and analysis and that type of those foundational pillars, was that always going to be the area that you were going to dive into? Was that always the area of interest that you saw the market opening?
It was, but obviously I didn't know what I didn't know. It was just an area of strength for me. It was a way I had differentiated myself at work, even before sports business. So yeah, it was a little bit of a marriage of, a strength and skill with passion being the industry.
Amazing. 2006, and now here you are. I mean, I guess you could say 16 years, 17 years in. It's hard to believe probably when you look back that it's been 17 years since you founded this, because it's easily probably the biggest career risk you've ever taken to open up your own shop like this and start hiring a staff and putting everything really on the line.
It sure felt that way at the time. Actually, something strange is that it was very scary up until making the decision. And then you have tunnel vision because you're on a mission and you have to accomplish something and you have a long hill, to climb in front of you. But yeah, it was definitely the biggest risk. I genuinely thought and told myself that I could lose everything. People like you that I respected, that were nice enough to talk to me, at that early stage of my career, I thought I could lose those relationships and burn those bridges, by bringing this idea forward and failing. Now, in hindsight, you learn faster. And, if a young person came to me applying for a job and they were a recently failed entrepreneur, that would make them more valuable to me, not less. But yeah, at the time, I genuinely thought I was making the biggest bet of my life, probably too soon, but I did anyway. So there's some naivete in there.
You've said that a couple of times now, AJ. Is that meaning that you wish you started Navigate in, say, 2010? Or would you have given yourself 3 or 4 more years of learning within the industry?
I would have, without question. But, the benefit of hindsight tells me that it was the right time. But that was good fortune and luck, right? The downturn in 08, 09 caused people to ask tougher questions. Is this sponsorship really working? And everyone, it's almost like very similar to today. Everyone claims to have a research department and to do some form of measurement, right? Every full service agency. And they were doing the same thing in 2008. But what tough economic times do is they really strip you down to your real, true core capabilities, right? People aren't throwing money at something that you might do as a side feature. And so it was great. A bunch of people who were attempting to be or claiming to be sort of in our space disappeared. And our business actually grew throughout that, what people call the global financial crisis. It was too soon for me. I wasn't ready in so many ways, but I would have also missed that unplanned, unexpected window. So just good fortune.
As you look at yourself, how are you different circa 2023, AJ, than you were when you started Navigate in 2006? What are you better at? What do you still need to get better at?
I consider that, I'm playing the infinite game, is sort of the way I talk about this with my inner circle of friends. This is a never-ending journey of personal growth. So there's no finish line here, but I was far from ready, looking back in hindsight. I had a great work ethic. Not all of that we choose either, right? I think people who know me as friends know that I'm naturally pretty high energy. So it wasn't hard for me to be at work till 11 p.m. or midnight or something like that. But, I had to put in those hours to overcome my shortcomings, right? And my lack of experience and ability in certain areas. So yeah, I would have waited for time. And the AJ today is far wiser. I had not at that time started my personal journey of growth, on that side of my life, physical and mental health and wellness and just personal growth and sort of all phases. So yeah, it would be a lot easier to do today. That's for sure.
Do you still find yourself working till 11 o'clock at night?
I don't. Isn't that something maybe we shouldn't be telling our clients? But no, we have a meritocratic environment at Navigate. We're proud to tell people it's a meritocracy. And by that, I mean, we're in the business of, intellectual property and producing ideas and solutions, not man hours for our clients. And that requires downtime. There's this great book called Deep Work that gets into the science of, downtime and ideation and the creative element of everyone's job. And Navigate has a creative element, believe it or not. I've found far more balance in my life, and I've seen and experienced the benefits of that balance. What you're able to bring to work for your clients when you have a different perspective. Like I'm a avid reader. I read about a book a week now. I probably read a book a decade in that first decade, for Navigate. So, yeah.
Was there an aha moment or a turning point where you said, I'm going to basically put the brakes on my current lifestyle and try to read more, try to, decompress more, try to have more me time?
I don't know if it was exactly an aha moment, but I started doing some personal international travel with a group of friends, and it was impossible not to learn at an accelerated rate. I'm probably exaggerating things when I say this, but if you picture this kid born and raised in Fairbanks, Alaska, I was born and raised in the same house my mom was born and raised in, there's just this sort of provincial, local type thinking. It just seems like we call the US continental 48 states the lower 48. It's just another world, and you think of it in a different way. And so those broadening of horizons that I keep describing, the idea that there's more to the world when you see it firsthand. You can learn about it in a history book. When you experience different cultures, different environments, different societies, I would say that was the moment for me. And also, you tend to meet different people in those settings. So we all know the United States is a very ethnocentric country, and we come by it honestly. We have safe borders, and we're well protected from a military perspective. Our neighbors are distant from us. It's easy to just assume this is the way it is. And so that was it for me. Travel has been the greatest teacher.
We didn't really hit on this at the start, but you alluded to it because, yes, you were born in Fairbanks, but I believe you grew up in a town with a population of under 800, and it was a very, very, what was it like? It was pretty remote, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's an exaggeration. Everybody in Alaska, no, I shouldn't say everyone. So many people in Alaska live like that for part or all of their lives. The reason people are in Alaska when they're there by intention is to be off the grid, to be away from everybody. Yeah, exactly. So if you saw Fairbanks, it's kind of a sad looking town relative to the population of it. And it's a population center. There's plenty of people who live off, sort of in the bush, kind of like Australia. They call they call it the bush. And that's why they want to be in Alaska. They're libertarians. They want their privacy and peace. And, so.
But I guess I get to that because I can see where global travel and seeing other cultures and other parts of the world would have such a strong influence on you.
Right. Without question. Those aren't things you just don't see growing up in Fairbanks. And you don't even meet that many worldly people like that. It's just not, it's far to go anywhere. The travel time from Phoenix, where I live today, to Fairbanks is 7.5, 8 hours. You have to connect at some point. And, it's just one of those things where, think about that. Most Americans, live in the East. You can get to Europe as fast as I can get home to my, American-born hometown. So it's just different. You just don't see and maybe it was just me, but that's how I felt.
As we look back, any regrets?
Oh yeah, tons. Of course, so many regrets. Speaking of travel, the one I most frequently think of is studying abroad. My father was fluent. I'm Hispanic. I'm half Hispanic, that is. My father was fluent, and we didn't speak Spanish in the home. I don't know if that was some sort of assimilation thing, or I don't know what that is. There a lot of people in my generation, their parents didn't pass that on. And I think that's trended the other way. But to study abroad, to take my Spanish to the level of fluency, to see the world earlier, because it was really my early 30s when I started seeing the world and experiencing these things. Boy, what a missed opportunity, because a friend invited me in college, and I thought it would have messed with my pace to graduate within 4 years, and I declined. Terrible mistake.
And as you think about where you've traveled, AJ, what areas stand out? What cities remain impactful for you?
Because I was living in Chicago the prior 14 years, we would almost always get out in the winter. And, to do so, we'd be heading to the Southern Hemisphere. And, the majority of the Southern Hemisphere is kind of in a tough situation. Being young and able-bodied and all those kind of things, I really concentrated on these tougher places, third world countries. And I think that you can't hide from the perspective. The favelas in Brazil look a lot like the slums in sub-Saharan Africa, look a lot like many of the parts of, India and even East Asia. The way they live, the way they cook, multi-generational in the same homes, these sort of shanty towns and things along those lines. That's shocking to see how happy those people can be, how hard they're working, how difficult their circumstances can be. It's horrible to say it because it almost seems like a negative thing to like compare and contrast these things, but you juxtapose the way that they live and the circumstances they face, and you cannot ignore the privilege that we have by being born into the first world. It just makes everything we do look so easy. I would say that was like if there was a top epiphany, it is understanding that about half the world lives in poverty and in situations in which you just don't bootstrap your way out of it. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, I can certainly see it made a pretty profound impact on your point of view and probably your career decisions and your life decisions. And I just got this question from one of the colleagues here. Can you share any book that you've read recently that has made an impact on you that you want to share with the listeners?
I use Audible now because I do a lot of hiking out here in Arizona, and when I'm working out, I'm listening. So I have such a hard time citing the authors and books. But I read a lot on behavioral economics. It's a fascinating subject for me. I'm a big fan of Adam Grant because he also teaches in this positive psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania. So he's like business school to the positive psych, and this is like the leading program in the world. I love the way he bridges those two and sort of his books and his lessons. So anything Adam Grant has written, I read a lot on spirituality in the last year, just trying to open up to it. And I've read 5 or 6 books on Stoicism in the last year or two. That's been really helpful to me. It's unbelievable that these lessons from ancient times are so unbelievably relevant and applicable today.
All right, let's talk a couple of questions on sports before we finish up of a few more about you. So as you sit at the beginning of 2023, as you and your purview look at the sports business and the sports industry, how do you feel? Optimistic, engaged, pessimistic, frustrated, discouraged?
I'd like to think I'm an optimist. I know I seem so skeptical in so many of our discussions between the two of us, but I'm optimistic about what sports can and do for the world at large. But I am simultaneously disappointed in how little we leverage that stage and that megaphone that we have to make a positive difference in the world. There's very few things that bring a community together the way that sports does, and the other things are usually negative. It's war or tragedy. So I'm concerned and disappointed in how little we leverage what we have and are able to do, to positively impact the world at large. And I'm searching for that calling. So if anyone listens to this and they have an idea, thinking of Navigate's roots and research and data and analytics, I'm looking for that way to marry what we do at work together with this industry we love to make a positive impact in the world that I care about. But as far as just the dollars and cents in our business, sports will be fine. We are increasingly available for more leisure time in this world. Now we're losing the leisure time battle versus social, digital, mobile in the sports world. But people have more money than any time in history and more leisure time than any time in history, and sports will be a benefactor of that. I'm just hoping we turn it into health and wellness and equality around the world. Yeah, that would be my top concern.
As you sit in 23 compared to your days at Washington or ASU starting the business, are you more engaged as a sports viewer, as a sports fan now, or less?
Oh, this is so bad. I barely watch sports, but there's so many young people on our team that just watch everything that, they've got me covered. But this is
right.
Not going to impress anybody, but I don't even watch very much TV, and I'm not much of a sports fan anymore. I love college athletics. Even that erodes every year. Every year, I'm a little more and more disappointed. And so I don't know what happened. I still get great joy out of going to events. I'm still rooting for people. I love the people that we work with, right? I want to and feel as a part of their team or their mission. But yeah, the teams I would list you as I was a fan of as a kid. By the way, now we're in this satellite era and you can see regional sports networks, but growing up, if you're in Fairbanks, Alaska, you just pick the teams you want to follow. So my selection of teams were so random and also in cities that I have never lived in that it was pretty easy to sort of just let that fade away. So I'm not much of a sports fan.
But who were they when you were growing up?
The Milwaukee Brewers.
That's right. You did tell me that.
The Los Angeles Rams, the first time they were in LA. Yeah. That kind of disappeared in college when I became a college football fan. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Didn't have a hockey team, despite being, growing up in Fairbanks, Alaska, and hockey country. Just weird stuff like that. I
want to end with this because I've seen you talk about this, but a lot of young people look at you because you have such a great network and so many people know you in the business. A lot of young people who are getting their start in sports business seek your counsel, seek your advice on how they can either become the next founder of Navigate, how they can work for a sports team, how they can work for a sports league or brand. What's your advice to a young person looking to start in the sports business?
I always start with know thyself, which gets attributed to Aristotle. So that's a shout out to my Stoicism reading over the last year or two. But to really know yourself and understand how you fit into that world and what your motivations are. Like there's a really fun exercise we go through at Navigate called public and private fears. And it's really the private fears that motivate people. really, really understand yourself. We do a ton of assessments in our hiring process. I always share all the free resources with these young people, and I hope that they fill them out, and they quite often do, and send them back to me so I can sort of weigh in and try to help them sort of pick their space. But I wish at a younger age I knew myself better, what my strengths and weaknesses were, so I could complement my weaknesses, right, with people with those skills, and et cetera, et cetera. And then this is so typical. I bet every one of your guests says the same thing, but finding something you love to do, that old saying, you'll never work another day the rest of your life. It's just true. It's just true. Really enjoying who you work with, the industry, the people, the mission that you're on. I would say those two. I go on with a bunch of others, like picking the right manager in your 20s. It's really about people more than the organization and stuff like that. But yeah, know thyself would be the one.
And know thyself in terms of the skill sets, your attributes, what you're, like you said, what you're good at, what you could use development around, even your mental capacities of what you're interested in.
And even your why. Most people's why, like this is almost certainly something you'll edit out of the show, but a fun exercise we'll do is, and you can do it right now with me if you want, Abe. What parent did you most seek love from?
My dad.
And what did you have to do to be worthy of that love?
Make him proud, work hard, be a good boy.
Yeah. And does that reflect who you are, how you live, what drives you today?
I would hope so, but I think other people would probably have to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah.
But internally, but I hope so, yes.
Yeah. Well, people understanding their why. I have this amazing young superstar coworker, Kevin Kane. I asked this of him recently. His father, Kevin, I think Gordon Kane. His father was worked in the Olympics for many years. And had a successful agency for many years. He was English born, and they just have this connection through soccer. And so his connection to his father is it's many things, but in many ways it's rooted into his relationship with his father and the mutual love for the global game of football. And, his why is, using that game to positively impact the world and make a difference in, football/soccer. And he was so immediately able to articulate his why that for better or worse, you now know this bond, this tie, this generational motivation that you have and what your why is. So many young people don't know their why yet. I didn't know my why, right? When I was that age.
What's your why now?
It changes over time. But I believe in service. I know this sounds so cheesy, but I believe that the highest plane of living is in service to others. And so my why now is, I have this whole cheesy statement. You'll probably want to edit this out too, but I have this whole cheesy statement that my life's purpose is to help other people meet their full potential so they can serve the world at large. And as far as, how I spend my leisure time or my disposable income, it is, in the service of others. And that goes beyond people, the planet and beyond. But yeah, I think that, and that could be your children, that could be your religion, but I think that you're at your best when you're serving others. And my coworkers apply, right? The way that I create an environment, hopefully contribute to an environment and navigate and create paths and careers and all that good stuff. So it's a nice tool for me to apply across philanthropic giving and service work and even what I do for a living.
Well, we love the focus on the altruism and doing what's right, and that sense of, I would say, understanding your why with a sense of almost like a peaceful mission to do well and to do it right. And so, AJ, keep it up. And I think that that's a great way for us to end our SBJ I-Factor conversation with Navigate's AJ Maestas, who was an SBJ 40 under 40 honoree in 2015. And again, AJ, we will see you down the road. Thanks for joining us on the SBJ I-Factor.
Thanks for having me, Abe. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
SBJ I-Factor is presented by Allied Sports, a full-service agency built to lead modern marketers in the shift from sponsor to storyteller. Find out how at alliedsports.com.